All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us tonight. We wanted to provide an opportunity to kind of review some of the district-wide safety protocols for returning to in-person learning, and also answer some specific questions to C-Home and some specific classes, and then just provide a time and space for anyone who has additional questions to ask them, and for us to kind of be together and be able to provide that information for you. So welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. And I think to start, we just want to thank everyone for all of their support through this whole thing. We can't believe it's been almost a year. We also know that there are many families who will continue working remotely and that there is no right option. So what we're going over tonight are the procedures for in-person and the safety protocols that we will have in place. But we know that for many families, this is not an option and will need to continue remote. And we will be supporting those students and families as earnestly as we are the students who are returning. So thank you for coming this evening, and we look forward to having you. So we're gonna go over a couple, if you wanna go to the next slide, Mike, a couple of the kind of the norms for our meeting tonight. At the bottom, you'll see a space for the Q&A. We do not have the raise hand feature, so what you will use is that Q&A. So if, as we're going through the presentation, you have some questions, you can put those questions in that feature, and then we will be answering those either live in that chat area of the Q&A, or we'll answer them at the end when we have a formal Q&A session. But we're so thankful that you're here, and we're happy to answer any of the questions that you might have.
So this, we're going to start off by sharing a video that was created to just kind of, oh, and I need to probably make sure that audio is being shared. So let me do that real quick. Sorry. Okay, so this is kind of encapsulates a lot of the safety procedures as we kind of head into it. And so hopefully this will kind of start filling in some of your questions that you might have as we return to it. But we'll also have some other slides that we're going to kind of talk through as well. But we'll watch this to begin with.
We look forward to welcoming students back to our high schools. We are able to do this by following the guidance outlined by our State Department of Health. As we return to school, we want to remind you that it is going to be different, and we ask for your patience as we adjust to these protocols designed to keep you and our community healthy. Before students return to school, we ask families to review and complete the Family Health Agreement. Do not come to school if you are sick, or if someone in your household is presumed positive or has tested positive for COVID-19. Before leaving for school, make sure to bring a mask with you. Whether arriving by school bus, walking, biking, or by car, all staff, students, families, and visitors must be wearing a mask, even while outside and physically distant. Disposable and reusable masks are available for students who need them. At this time, families and visitors will not be allowed to enter our schools. While arrival and dismissal times have traditionally been used to gather and socialize, we ask that everyone keep moving and remain physically distanced. After entering the school building, students should proceed directly to their advisory class. Upon entering the classroom, students will be directed to wash or sanitize their hands and attest to their own health using our daily digital check-in tool. Classrooms have been reorganized to create additional space, and students will sit in assigned seats. Since lockers will not be available for use at this time, students will need to bring their backpacks, laptops, chargers, and other materials to class with them. Teachers will teach lessons in their classrooms. Some students will be present in person. Others will participate in the lesson via Zoom. There may be some variation. For example, there might be times when the whole class, both in person and remote, may be on Zoom if it makes sense to more easily engage in a class discussion or other activity. And there might be times when the teacher has students working independently in the classroom or at home. There are many different high school classes and subject areas, and what works well for one course might need to look different for another. Teachers will make adjustments as needed for what works best for their lesson and class. Between classes, students should go directly to their next class and not congregate in the hallways or common areas. Floor markings throughout the school will help with physical distancing and traffic flow. We will have staff in the hallways to help remind students to practice distancing and keep moving. Restrooms will have maximum occupancy signs posted on the door to maximize physical distancing requirements. If a student enters the restroom and the maximum occupancy is already met, they will wait distanced in the hallway until someone exits. When given permission to use the restroom, a student will go directly there and return to class immediately after use. Drinking fountains are closed throughout the building. We encourage students to bring a water bottle to school to support their needs. Students may step out of the classroom to take a drink and then return to the classroom. Quick snacks should be managed like a drink of water. Students will have the option to pick up a grab-and-go lunch and breakfast combo at the end of the in-person school day. If a student is remaining at school for afternoon support or activities, lunch may be eaten in designated indoor spaces and using many of the outdoor spaces around your campus. Meal boxes will be provided on Wednesdays at one of our community locations for all students. Hand sanitizing stations, wall mounts, and hand pumps are located throughout the building, and students will be encouraged to frequently wash their hands or use hand sanitizer at various points during the day. Each classroom will be supplied with a bottle or wall-mounted approved sanitizer, as well as cleaning supplies to wipe down surfaces. Teachers and students will establish daily cleaning routines. To meet recommendations from the CDC and Health Department, we have upgraded our air filters to the MERV 13 standard. All buildings have fresh outside air that is filtered, circulated, and refiltered within the building. Classrooms have 5 air exchanges per hour or greater while windows are closed, with such constant air exchange and filtering reducing the likelihood of airborne COVID-19 aerosols. All school buildings are sanitized and disinfected daily by our custodial staff. High-use areas are cleaned multiple times per day. Teachers and staff will be provided with cleaning supplies at each school. We ask that you do not bring in your own cleaning products because mixing cleaning chemicals can be hazardous. If additional supplies are needed, custodians can order them through the school district. If a student begins to feel unwell during the school day, they will be directed to a designated screening room. There, a school nurse or trained staff member will check their temperature and assess their symptoms. Parents or guardians will be notified if their student needs to be picked up from school. The student's workspace will immediately be cleaned. Students who ride the bus to school will wear a mask. When boarding, students will stand 6 feet apart as they wait to enter. All riders will use the hand sanitizer mounted at the front door and then proceed to their assigned seat. When possible, windows and ceiling vents will be opened to increase airflow. When it's time to exit the bus, students will be directed to leave their seats one at a time in order to maintain distance. Thank you for listening and doing your part to help keep our community healthy. We look forward to seeing you soon.
All right, so as your student comes to school, we have some protocols for entering the school. And the first is just a reminder, if coming and being dropped off by a parent or arriving by their own vehicle, that before they step out, that they have their mask on. Oh, my screen just went blank there. There it went, now it's back. The other is, as students come to school, they'll be heading right to their anchor class. That is our advisory that we have been doing each morning and meeting. And as they come in, And the next slide will show that we would like them to actually enter the building to the closest entrance to their actual class. And as they enter, to follow the pathways to their classroom. So I think the next slide has kind of the markings of many of our entrances. So as many of our students and our ninth graders will get oriented with this tomorrow, know these different entrance points. So we have an entrance over by our gym, which is on the east side of our campus there. We have an entrance over by our music theater department, which is up by the soccer fields. We have our main entrance, and that will be access for many students who have classes near that area. If you continue down towards the parking lot, we have our area, which many students know as the fish tank area or the hub, as well as other entrances within our lower classroom areas by our art department and CTE. And then we also have entrances on the back side by Mr. Shang's classroom. The other X there that Mr. Kudo's on is the other side of our hub or fish tank. And then the other one is the backside to where our commons is located. So we just ask that as students come to school that they find their nearest entrance to what is closest to their advisory anchor class as they start the day.
Goodness. So once students are in the building, there are many different hallways and well, there's actually not a lot of different hallways. There's some really main hallways, and then there's some different staircases. And in each case, we have the arrows that you see below, or you see on the photograph, are arrows that we have that are stickers on the floor that mark staircases that are wide enough for us to be able to accommodate both up and down traffic at the same time. And then there are some staircases that are more narrow and are just one-way staircases. So in addition to the stairways that go up and down to get students from the first floor to the second floor, we also have hallway directional arrows and some stanchions, which are those fancy poles with the bands of fabric between, like that go between them. In case you didn't know what those were, those are stanchions. We have those in some of the places along the wider parts of the hallways to designate the coming and the going traffic. And we're encouraging students to just think about the hallways like you would a street and stay on the right side in your lane as you walk, and walk with purpose to your next class to avoid congregating in small groups. I know that that's going to be a new practice and habit for students who are probably very excited to see each other and haven't been in the same space. So we will all also be out in the hallways encouraging students to get to and from class. Teachers know to encourage students, and their doors are open the minute that their classes are ready to be filled up again with students. And so we are confident that within the building we have that system set. I'm not sure, Mike, if the next slide shows the outside walkway. So one of the other things we're doing to just mitigate the amount of students that we have in the hallways at any given time is to encourage students to use the outside south side of the building as a walkway. So this is the opposite of the entrance that you would see if you drove up and parked in the parking lot. I don't know, some of you may not have even seen the back side of the school before. We have a beautiful landscaping with walkways that are wide enough and provide a great walkway for students to go to and from their classes using the outdoors. So another option for students to be able to access their classes from the outside portion of the building during the daytime.
And when it comes to in the classroom, there was a picture in the video, but we have spaced out well, we have maximum capacities set out for every classroom throughout the building. And we have really removed all extra furniture out of classrooms, so extra chairs, in some spaces extra tables and other furniture to just maximize the space to meet kind of the ability to put students in there, but also have that 6-foot distance between students from one another, as well as students from the adults in the room. So so our general capacity for the most part is about 15 students per classroom is kind of what our number ends up being for most of our spaces, with some variation depending on like some PE spaces, and some of the other choir spaces have some different requirements when it comes to our choir and our band requirements. It's a 9-foot distancing, but those spaces have been marked out to meet those different kind of health guidelines. So all the spaces have kind of been positioned in that. And then also in our halls, we have really marks, and also outside of the building as well. If you come for supply pickup tomorrow or come by, you will see, especially outdoors, there are lots of green dots that have been kind of dispersed throughout the exterior of the property, especially around the bus loop, as well as the parent drop-off pickup area, so that students just have literally an easy spot to kind of be cued to be like, oh right, I need to space out. So we have that also in the halls as students arrive to their next class. So if there is a wait to get into class, they have a spot to be like, all right, I'll stand here, you stand there. So ideally reduces any sort of kind of congregating in less than 6 feet to one another. I think I talked about
So yeah, so as Mike mentioned previously, their band, orchestra, and choir do have some unique guidelines, and they have taken into account the Department of Health guidelines, and there's been a lot of thought put into how we are going to bring back our music programs into the building. So the things that you see on the slide are true for all music programs, band, orchestra, and choir. There's a maximum of 15 students rehearsing at any given time. That means even if we do have the space to rehearse more than 15 students, we are limited by the guidance that we can only rehearse 15 students at a time. They can also only rehearse for 30 minutes at a given time, and that allows for the air exchange to be able to clear out the air before another group of students comes in. And then our guidelines show 9 feet of spacing instead of the 6 feet that we have in classrooms that are not band, orchestra, and choir. And then the requirements around masks are the 6-ply mask requirements. So the surgical masks are required in order to play instruments and sing. And then we do not have the go-ahead right now for any performances at this time. There are many more very specific guidances around the kind of protection for band and wind instruments, which I won't bore you with right now. But if you have a student who's in band and you want to know a little bit more about that, I know more about how to play a wind instrument than I ever have before. So I'm happy to talk you through the many layers of protection that are set up and mandated through the state for that. But just know that the following things on the slide are the common requirements for all band, orchestra, choir, and actually for drama as well, if there's any kind of, as they describe it, yelling or shouting. So if there's any yelling or shouting, then the same rules apply. If they're studying a play, it's very different. So yeah, so I'm happy to answer any questions further if you would like to know more details. PE classes will not have access to locker rooms. So students, depending on the PE class that they have and the way that their body interacts with exercise, they might want to consider bringing an extra shirt or bringing an extra mask. If there are a particular pair of shoes that they like to wear during PE, then they'll need to think about bringing those. And just as a reminder, because our lockers are not available to students either in the locker room or in the hallways, students will be carrying their items with them. So it's just something to think about. And teachers, of course, know that this is the case. And so will accommodate students who, might need an extra mask. We will have masks available for students that need those if your first one gets real sweaty and you need a new one. But just a heads up for students who are used to accessing the locker room in order to change into their PE clothes, that's not available in these times.
Perfect. At this time, we'd like to open it up. We'll give you a few minutes to add any of those questions that you might have to the chat, and then it can be related to this or how the instructional model will look. Anything that you've got for us or that you're wondering about, we'll do our best to answer it. And if we need to research a few things, we can do that as well. But this is just a chance for you to let us know what questions you still have so that we can answer those the best we know how.
Good question in the chat. So the question being, should freshmen bring their laptops tomorrow? The answer is yes. We definitely want this. We need students to be able to do the health attestation every time they come into the building, and that does include tomorrow for freshman orientation. So if they have another way to do the attestation, so if they have a smartphone that they can log in, they could do it through that system, but the laptop, if that's their best way to access the school website and the attestation, then we do ask that freshmen bring their device for that.
All right, the next question is around how strict will teachers be about being tardy? It seems like it might take longer to get between classes. And I think that this will certainly be a work in progress. Really, you can get from any place, point A to point B in the building within those 5 minutes. But as we're building routines and getting those things in place, teachers will provide some flexibility. Our goal is, we looked at a 10-minute passing or a 5-minute passing, and the goal was really to keep people moving. And so that's really what we're looking for there. But I see our teachers being really flexible and accommodating, especially in the beginning, as students are learning routines in terms of checking out of their other class, making sure they've got everything cleaned up, and then moving to the other one. But great question. All right, well, the 2-day students aren't at C-Home be the same as they are now online. So I think that this is talking to the instructional model. So to start out, and in many classes, it will look very similar. The students who are at home for those 2 days or who are continuing remote for the entire time, they'll Zoom into class and they'll be able to access live instruction and connection with their teacher. In some classes, like in our manufacturing class, where it makes more sense for students to be welding when they're in the building rather than Zooming, that will certainly take place, and that's hard to replicate for those who are staying home full time. But we will continue to provide some opportunities in the afternoon for those students and all of those different pieces. So it's a work in progress, but certainly teachers will start out in it will look similar to what it is now. Kim, do you have anything you want to add around the instructional model, since you're kind of Kim's been trying it in her classes and has lived it?
Yeah, so I would just say, at the beginning, I think it's going to be class dependent and teacher dependent, as comfortable as teachers are with the different technology that they're learning right now of being back in the classroom, and having both students remote and students live in the classroom. But I think the biggest thing is just knowing that as we are kind of figuring out and massaging those pieces, that teachers are extremely excited to welcome their students back in the classroom. And I can speak for myself. There is a surge of energy when that takes place. And so it's one of those things where I think teachers for a moment might forget for a second, and then they'll be checking back in with their students that are remote, especially at the beginning as we're excited to actually meet students in person where we've really only met them over the screen.
So I want to respond to the question around the health attestation. So yes, well, yes and no. There are two different health attestations. There's a health attestation that families will do quarterly. If your student is returning to in-person learning or attending school, or doing any kind of small groups or projects in the building, including in-person learning starting next week, then there is a quarterly health attestation that we're asking families to fill out. Actually, we're requiring that families fill it out. And that is located both on the district website and on the CHOME website. Actually, I think the district website has it under families. It's called quarterly health attestation. And when you click on it, you fill out one per child. So if you have 2 students at CHOME, you would fill it out twice, 1 per student. Or if you have a student at an elementary school, middle school, and the high school, you'll fill out 3, 1 per student. And basically what the question is asked, what the survey is asking is for you to not bring your child or allow your child to come to school if they're sick or have any kind of symptoms. So it's an agreement that you're making with the school that you will keep your child home if they're sick or if they've been around anyone who's been sick or had symptoms. So that is a one-time thing that you do, and that we want you to fill out before your student starts school in person. The health attestation that students do, they do every day, and they do it one time a day when they first come to school in the morning. So they'll fill it out either, once students get in the habit of it, they'll probably fill it out as they're walking into school if they have a smartphone, like many of us. So all staff members do this as well, and we've been in the habit of doing this since it started. So for many months, we've been filling out this health attestation every day. And you can actually put it as a little app on your phone. And so you'll see, I'll watch staff as they come in, they'll like stop and like open their phone and like do the health attestation really quick. And we assume the students will probably get in the same habit of doing it quickly when they first get to school, but there will be time right when they get into Anchor, the first class of the day, for them to be reminded to go in, and they can do it on their computer, and they've been shown exactly where that is under the student tab on the CHOME website. And now actually it's one of the banners that goes across the CHOME website. So the students will attest to their own health every day, and that's what the health attestation is asking. It's like, how are you feeling, and have you been around anyone that's sick? And then it asks the question of how they got to school that day, whether they walked or they rode the bus or they came by car. And then they put their name in, and they do that every single day. And it's part of our contact tracing system. So if we do need to ever do any contact tracing, we have that information easily accessible. And one of the things that we're doing with freshmen tomorrow is walking them through that process in the orientation. If your student is not a freshman or misses the orientation, they will be taught how to do that over and over and over again starting next week. So no worries. You don't have to teach your kid how to do it. We will take care of that, and we'll make sure that they get lots of practice.
Great. One of the questions is, so recently, I think as of today, there was some kind of update regarding teachers receiving vaccinations. I think that's probably also in tandem with the president's statements coming out today as well. So since it is hot off the press, as far as there being a school or district policy about teachers getting vaccinated, I don't think there is a policy, but obviously this is real positive news, and I think we will support our staff in finding vaccinations as they become available, and supporting that as we can.
All right, so there's a question about whether or not students will be able to stay in the building for asynchronous learning. So on Friday, our schedule shifts so that students end their synchronous work time at 12:30. And then between 12:30 and 1:10, it's scheduled for travel time and lunch. Many of our students will go home during that time, ride the bus, but the building will remain open for students until 3:30. Where they can stay for asynchronous office hours. If their teacher is working remotely or is not in the building for office hours, they'll be able to continue working in the internet cafe as a space for them in the afternoon to complete that asynchronous work.
Okay, so I see a question about what do we do if there's a positive case of COVID in the classroom? It's a great question. Part of the system that I just referred to, the health attestation, has to do with how we do contact tracing. Another one of the important systems we have in place is knowing where students are and where they're sitting any given class period. So we have a system set up so that we'll know and be able to track where students are sitting in the classroom. And with both of those systems together, if there's a positive case of COVID in the classroom, we have a very strict protocol that we go through that's in tandem with the health department and with our district office, where we attest to where that student was. We reach out to students who could be potential secondary primary contacts. The student is interviewed, and we proceed in that manner, contacting students who we think or who we know might have possibly been in contact with that student, and then we move from there. One of the things that complicates it for everyone is, I mean, it doesn't complicate it, but one of the things that keeps everyone from knowing all the gory details about every person's individual situation is that, we do operate under HIPAA laws around and FERPA laws around student health. And so we will be contacting families and students who need to know, because they're part of that contact group that we may have, that we have identified. And you may get an email that just says, there was a positive case of COVID at the school, and everyone who needed to has been contacted, and maybe you didn't get contacted. So that would be because we're confident that that student did not come in contact with your child, and therefore the people who needed to know. And so, and I don't know, Sonia's is a pro, so she might have some more answer, a more detailed answer to that question, or a different aspect to that, but that's generally what will happen.
So I think what's important to know is that we're acting on behalf of the health department. So basically the health department is assigned the job of doing the interviews and doing the contact tracing, but because of our relationships, we can get it done much quicker and draw a tighter circle around that case and be able to kind of see where that person has come into contact with, and be able to kind of get them in a quarantine situation earlier before it has any other chance of spread. But we also have really a lot of partners in this work at the district level and in the health department, and we just follow their guidelines around what to say, when to say it, how to follow it. And every case that we've kind of had to kind of learn from, each case study has been a different piece of learning. And so it will continue to evolve, and we just work on behalf of the health department to do that contact tracing.
I see another question. If a student doesn't feel well, do parents need to call in their absence, or do they just log into class? I guess the answer to that question would be whether or not the student is well enough to log into class. If the student is well enough to log into class remotely, then they can attend class just like they are doing now. If they are not well enough to attend class remotely, then the parent would need to call and excuse their absence, just like you would if you had a child who was in person and was sick.
Kim, do you want to talk a little bit about the different types of absences and how that will work?
Sure, I'd love to. So there are going to be two realms of absences. There's going to be attendance taken for students that are remote. So that's the students that are at home, and the students that are in person. So as teachers are taking attendance daily, we will know what students are supposed to be in person that day. And we may then notice that actually a student is remote that day, so they're still present. They'll just be marked specifically as being a student present in the remote setting or present in the in-person setting. And the absences will be marked the same, as there are two different realms of kind of following attendance for students that are actually in person learning to students that are at the remote learning. But when it comes to being absent, we just ask that if your student is completely absent from the school day, just to continue to do the practice that you have been doing, to either call the school or you can email Tony Ladner, and we can work to then get that absence excused.
One of the questions regarding are some COM teachers going to teach remotely, kids in class, teacher at home? So we do have some teachers that, due to variety of circumstances, will be teaching or continuing to teach remotely, while some of their students will be in class. And so we are working with our teaching staff to support those remote teachers by some teachers that are in the building being present in that classroom as kind of the physical kind of support person, but obviously the instruction will be coming from that teacher. So as far as the maintaining the curriculum and kind of the content that they are learning, that's kind of our key piece that we're really trying to emphasize in supporting them, especially as we get closer to having our staff become vaccinated.
So there's a question here about what's the calendar going to look like as we move into the 2 days of students being at school. So first, just we're phasing in our students. So next week we start with our freshmen, and as we phase in, we're doing it through our alphabet. So Monday will be A through K freshmen, and then Tuesday will be A through K our sophomores, and then Thursday back to our freshmen L through Z, and then our sophomores on Friday. Then the following week, we add our juniors and seniors, but we tier them too. So on Monday, it will be freshmen and juniors, A through K, and Tuesday are sophomores and seniors, A through K, and then flip-flop that Thursday, the freshmen and juniors at the end of the alphabet, and then on Friday with our seniors and sophomores. On March 22nd, we begin our two-day hybrid model, essentially, where our students will be coming 2 days into the building. So March 22nd, we'll have 9 through 12, A through K, Monday and Tuesday, and then Thursday, Friday will be the other half of the alphabet, L through Z, 9 through 12. So in the sense of our calendar is still going to stay in the 22-day rotation. And so this Friday, we start our next rotation. So we're in the B-day rotation of periods 5 through 8. And the nice part is it ends the Friday going into spring break. And so it kind of has a nice little ending point. And then when we return on, April 12th, I think it is, after spring break, we start our A-day rotation again. And so we'll just continue that 22-day rotation. There is a little change at the end of the year, and we'll communicate that more as we get closer with seniors and finals and things like that with our rotation, but we will still be doing the 22-day cycle, but just adding those 2 days a week that students are coming in.
If you heard Kim say all those different dates and your head is swimming with alphabet letters and dates, and you really need to see something on paper, if you go to the See Home website, one of the banners that swings by you at the top has a calendar that shows the 3 weeks of March where we're phasing students in, and it'll tell you the alphabet and the grade levels. So that might be a good visual. And then also on Friday this week, when we start a new rotation, our new bell schedule also starts, which is a shift from the way that we've been doing school so far, where school starts at 8:30 and then every class begins on the hour, which is a really nice and even way to think about the 4 periods of the morning. But it gives students right now a 10-minute break in between each class. And because we're reducing that 10-minute break down to 5 minutes, we're actually shifting everything forward a bit. And so classes aren't going to be starting exactly on the hour anymore. They will stay the same length. They just won't stay on the hour. So instead of starting the first class starting at 9 o'clock, it'll start at 8:55. And then there'll be 5-minute breaks between every class, and school will end at 12:30. And we're starting that Friday. We're starting that Friday. And then the hybrid learning on Monday will begin with that schedule with in-person learning.
There's a question regarding kind of snow days, which, hey, no snow days this year, at least knock on wood. I mean, it is March, but you never know. But there was a question just in regards to the overall schedule for the year. Is it going to any updates or changes? So I just put in the chat the link to our school calendar for the planned calendar for the year. There won't be any changes to the A or B day rotation. There are some embedded days that if we had snow days, we would go to school rather than have the day off. Those would just remain days off. So yeah, thanks.
There's a question about the graduation dates being set, and those are not firmly set yet. We are looking potentially at either the week of June 11th and 12th or the next week of I think it's the 18th and 19th, but it has not been finalized as of yet. So we're also still considering all of the options of what that will look like. But it's going to be a grand adventure, and we look forward to celebrating this class in a meaningful way and whatever works best for them, and working with our seniors to really figure out what that day will look like. So. All right, any other questions? While you're kind of thinking of those final questions, I'm going to put the PTSA Zoom link in the chat so that you have that. After this meeting, there will be a meeting for the PTSA where they will be going over a few things and answering questions as well. So please copy and paste that link, because as soon as this ends, you won't have access to it. So if you want that link, make sure that you copy and paste that. I'd love to take this opportunity to give a huge shout out to our PTSA, who have done so many things. It's just really unbelievable. They've shown up, put together supply bags so many times, taken apart projects and sorted things, posted occupancy signs all over the building, really done things that there's no way that we could do without them. So, and provided snacks. So I'm just saying, we have the best PTSA, and we would love if you would continue to support that group, and as they work to support our school as well. So are there any other final questions as we end up? A question about busing. I don't see it. If you could type it one more time.
I see it here.
Oh, okay,
actually. Perfect. It says, is my freshman allowed to ride the bus to school but ride home with his older brother who's off campus in the morning? Yes, there's no, if a student rides the bus in the morning, they're welcome to either ride the bus home in the afternoon or be picked up by you or ride with their sibling home. And we're not going to be tracking who came in what manner and how they got home in that same manner. It'll be just like a normal school year where students come and go in many different forms. Sorry, we missed that question.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining us this evening. Usually when these things end, I think of one final question, but feel free to contact any one of us. We're happy to answer those. We've been making phone calls and connecting with families, and everyone has their own situation, and we're here to support all of those. So thank you so much for joining us this evening. We hope to see you at the PTA meeting after this one, or in our meeting next week as well. But thank you so much. And if there's anything we can do to support you or your student, please reach out. Have a good night.